All right. So I am here with the wonderful Andy Bernstein. Andy, do you prefer Andy or Andrew?
Well, I mean, my friends call me Andy, but since we're talking about something that I've written, my professional name is Andrew Bernstein.
So we have been working on Red Meat Village together for what? I'm sure at least a year at this point,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. Well, I think it's more than a year. Yes.
And we started with your books, which are excellent. We then said, all right, well, we're going to turn this into a scripted podcast. How are we going to do this? And, a lot of it was already there on the page in your books. Ultimately, I think it's a relatively faithful adaptation, but the only things that we really changed was gearing it towards the audio format. Do you remember kind of like our discussions about that and how we ended up tackling that?
Yeah, I know. I know it's a whole different genre in effect, or at least it's a different venue. So I remember we went back and forth on that quite a bit, but we finally figured it out. And I thought you did a really good job writing the script, Dan.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, I think what was cool was that, you were so passionate about the female lead of your story. And,
I fell in love with her in writing her character.
Yeah. And I think that your passion inspired me. And so we ended up coming up with this device where it switches the POV character. So one episode we're with Tony and he's doing the first person narration. And then one episode we're with Lisa and she's doing the first person narration. And it was really helpful because in noir, classically, right? And this is contemporary noir, but it's still noir. In noir, the femme fatale character always is a secret, right? But right. You don't really get interiority to that character when you're watching a noir film, for example, or even I think a lot of noir fiction, you're typically in the detective's headspace. So getting to sort of hear her thoughts was kind of a useful way, I think, to explore the character a little more.
Yeah, I think that definitely helps. Lisa Flowers is by far the most complex character in the universe of Tony Just. There's so many good things about her, which is why Tony, and me, why we're both so deeply in love with her. And yet, in that volume 1, Red Meat Village, that we turned into a dramatic audio podcast, she does some bad things and and messes up her relationship with the man who loves her. So yeah, and puts his life in grave danger. So yeah, she's mixed in that, certainly in Red Meat Village, but very, very complex character.
Yeah, it's so I guess I thought it would be interesting for the audience to just kind of talk through like how we actually did this, right? So it started with your books, which I read, and then we discussed doing the adaptation. Then we worked on the adaptation together. Then we went to casting, and we were fortunate to get Malik, Yoba, and Catherine Bell to do voices in the show, and they were excellent. I think we were really happy with their performances.
They're both great. They're both really terrific.
We had original music from our composer, which I think really adds a lot to it. Malik Yoba contributed some singing, impromptu theme songs.
Yes, he did.
And then I guess maybe if you could take the listeners back, one thing that I really loved is that when we finished it, I think I sent you a note and I said, you should go listen to this in a bar somewhere in New York. Yeah, if you could just tell the listeners when you listened to it, when we finally had a cut for you to listen to, where did you listen to it? Because it was something you and I had talked about.
Where did I first listen to it? Dan, I don't even remember. I think it was probably in my car. When I was driving, because I teach philosophy. I think I was driving home from the college, and I was listening in my car. But I don't remember for sure. But it makes the what would be really good is, like you mentioned, a bar. Sitting in a bar somewhere in Brooklyn, which is Brooklyn, New York, which is where the story takes place. And listen to it with a bunch of drunks, or guys drinking in the bar. That would be perfect for this kind of scene, for this kind of noir story.
Yeah, if you're somebody who lives in New York, if you are walking home from the bar at like 2 a.m. and you put in the ear pods and listen to this show, I think that would be almost the ideal way to listen to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I grew up in Brooklyn. People don't realize that. They hear me talk, they think I'm from Louisiana, but I'm not. And that's a joke, by the way. Nobody thinks I'm from Louisiana. But I grew up in Brooklyn, so I know the area. I know the area well. And there's a lot of colorful, Brooklyn locations. And one thing about the New York borough, Brooklyn, the Bronx, Queens. They have a reputation for being gritty, and tough-minded, And and that I think that's often the case. I say as a different reputation than say Hollywood, which people often think people in Hollywood, they think it's disingenuous, it's dishonest. People don't tell you the truth. In the New York boroughs, they tend to be more in your face, and they'll tell you the truth, even if it's not pretty. And if
it's too much truth.
Yeah. Sometimes it's too much truth, And so, it has that, the Red Meat Village has that Brooklyn ambiance. It has that, that feel, that feel to it. It's tough. It's gritty and tough-minded, which is perfect, atmosphere for noir.
I think that's one of the reasons that I really liked it. So I'm originally from the East Coast. I'm from Baltimore, and I've always
that's like the murder capital, one of the murder capitals of the country now, right?
We used to joke, we're number one. We're number one. Baltimore has actually cleaned up quite a bit and gentrified in the years since, but there was a while, where it was really bad.
Yeah, and I think you've been supplanted at number one in the murder. I think St. Louis is now, but I'm not. Yeah, I'm not sure. So I'm not sure.
But there is an East Coast thing. There's sort of an East Coast flavor that I think is very present in your writing and in the show as well. And I think that actually brings me to another thing that I wanted to discuss with you. So. We put the show out, and you always want the show to be successful. We're really proud of the show. We think the show is excellent, but there's always a fear of, man, what if we're wrong, right? What if we don't think, like, the audience that we think is there isn't there or whatever? And we were so pleased to see that pretty quickly it shot up to number 17 of all fiction podcasts on Apple Podcasts. Was that a surprise to you, or was it sort of like a confirmation of your instincts as a writer that people clearly were enjoying the show, that it kind of moved up the charts like that?
Well, it made me very happy that it, that it's doing well. I'm glad people like it. I think it's a really good story. So, and that people who like this genre will enjoy it. So I wasn't surprised, that it was doing well, but I was definitely pleased. I'm really happy that, that the listeners enjoy it as much as I do. So yeah, I was real happy to see that.
Did you by any chance, Andy, listen to the behind the scenes interviews with Malik and Catherine?
Yeah, I did.
Was there anything that you heard that surprised you?
Well, Catherine Bell, she's a lovely woman, and she's been playing she's famous for playing the Good Witch, right? Was a Cassie Nightingale character, I think. And, there's a sweetness about her. And she said, I prefer these tough babes, these la femme fatale, rather than the sugar and spice, everything nice girl next door. So I don't know if that surprised me, but I was definitely pleased to hear it, because that's the kind of female characters that I was always attracted to. The bad girls. Unfortunately, like Dan, since you're a fan of noir, sometimes those bad girls turn out to be murderers. I'm thinking of the Barbara Stanwyck character in Double Indemnity, which is like a classic noir film. And Barbara Stanwyck, very beautiful, very sexy, very good actress, but she's a murderer. So no, I don't want to go that far, with the bad girls, the naughty girls. But somebody who's, it's got a naughty side. It isn't just, goody goody. Those are the kind of women I always like. So again, Catherine Bell said that. I was very pleased to hear it.
Yeah, I have to say, I think that Catherine was really the great victory of this project from a casting perspective. Because, like you said, really, if you look at her recent work, she's probably better known for doing this kind of soft, more Hallmarky kind of stuff. And I just had an instinct that she had that gear. I don't even know why. I think I might have read an interview with her at one point years ago or something like that. But I just had an instinct that she had that gear. And when we started recording together, it was immediately obvious that she had that gear.
Your instincts were 100% right. She was great. She just nailed the character of Lisa Flower. Her voice, her voice inflections and intonation. She was outstanding. I'm not surprised that Malik Yoba I remember him as Yul Brenner, from Cool Runnings and Tough Cop. What was it, New York Undercover? I'm not surprised that he would be perfect as Reggie Hard. But Catherine Bell, she didn't surprise me, because I know she's a talented actress, but I loved it. Yeah, I was really pleased, because I'm in love with the character. I like Reggie, and I like Tony, but I love Lisa. And so that Catherine Bell was so great, made me very happy.
Yeah, it speaks to the writing process, right? When you write something, you have to be into it emotionally in order for it to be good, And so I think that what you're saying, connects to that. I'm curious, as a fan of yours as a writer, what's the status of the books? Are you now looking towards publishing them?
Yes, I'm almost done with volume 3 of the Tony Just saga. And I think, Red Meat Village is the first. I think The Night is Long was volume 2, The Captive Brain, volume 3. I think they get better and better. I'm almost done with it. Early next year, let's say sometime in February, I should have it done. So I'll have a successful podcast. I'll have 3 novels. I'll have a series, not just 1 book, but 3. And then I'm going to start looking for literary agents to market this to mainstream, New York publishers, whether it's, Simon and Schuster, Random House, Knopf, something like that, because I think this has widespread commercial appeal. So yeah, 2023, I'm going to begin the marketing process. I'm going to use the podcast. Say, look, there's a market for these stories and for these characters.
Yeah, man. I think we've proven it. Yeah, it's really cool. So
yeah.
All right, awesome, man. Well, is there anything else that you want to share with the listeners of Red Meat Village?
Well, I mean, I think the noir crime story genre was certainly more popular in Hollywood back in the day than it is now. There was some classic movies. I mentioned Double Indemnity, which is a classic. Every fan of the genre should know that story. I hope it makes a comeback, because I love, and Liam Neeson has made these kind of gritty, crime stories in recent years. And I hope it makes a comeback, because it's a great genre. It's very entertaining. The stories typically don't ramble, because somebody's been murdered and the detective's got to track down the murderer, or something like that. So these stories have a plot. They have life and death stakes, good guys and bad guys, beautiful, sexy, la femme fatale, very, very often. So I hope this makes a comeback, and I hope Red Meat Village is part of it, both the dramatic audio podcast that you guys put together at Voyage, and the novels that I'm going to be marketing next year.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Andy.
Thank you for all your work on this project.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. And I guess for listeners, yeah, look out for those books. Whenever they come out, we will definitely update the show notes so that you can find them.
Great. Thanks, Dan.
All right. Thanks a lot. Thanks for listening to this behind the scenes discussion with Andrew Bernstein, the author of Red Meat Village. And you can find Red Meat Village on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you listen to podcasts.